Multi-domain warfare, remember those 5 conditions that I showed you in the beginning? This is what it led to now and why we had to change 3 of them. Was to build it in some conceptual form for folks to have an understanding of what to do. Why this is important. The information variable, I can tell you, has a great impact on how we would do operations. Now, I'm going to take a couple moments and we're going to do a quick, as I call it, ain't a check on learning, but we're going to go a quick discussion. We're in Korea. South Korea. When is the best time to launch an attack if I'm from the north? Those have been, how many have been in Korea?
Winter time when it's freezing cold.
Winter time, freezing cold. What's the next best time of the day to do it?
Early morning.
Early morning. Let's be honest now. Come on. Y'all don't want to tell. If you do it at about 1 o'clock in the morning when half the folks are still down in the Ville and the other folks are still trying to figure out how to get back. Come on now, let's be real. All right? If he launches an artillery attack, what happens to the city? Seoul.
1 million people.
Yes. Folks die. Folks are hit. Only thing you have to do is think back to 9/11 and what it was doing just hitting the towers. Just the impact. I do it well enough that you don't have time to get your civilian families out. Now, I'm going to ask this question. Anybody remember from the other days about doing a neo-non-combatant evacuation?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In Germany, that took about 2 to 3 weeks if we had advanced notification. You had to turn around and get your folks that was the best folks to come up and make sure they got out. You had to make sure that the folks that were basically newborns had a passport to get out of country. My son was born in Germany. One of the things that we were sitting there going, Lord, I hope to God it doesn't go off beforehand. Because guess what he had to do? We had to hold a plane up at Andrews Air Force Base. We came home on leave. Nobody could get off the plane till customs came on and cleared him for the passport. We're saying he's an American citizen. Said, no, this is his first time on American property. American soul. So you can see exactly why that's important. So think of this. You got to get up out of bed and go in and get all this stuff ready to get them cleared. Running a passport, does it mean that I do it right at my office in the regional personnel center and it's all clear? Who do I have to talk to then? Go to Munich or the embassy. You go wake that joker up and you go, I don't want to do anything until about 10 o'clock. What I'm pointing out to you is a lost skill set. So we have to think wiser as to what if it happens. How do we become what? Proactive. What is in the SOP? How many folks are really looking at their SOPs and they're updated? When I say updated, they haven't been just re-signed and that's it without taking a look.
Yeah.
Am I going to get paid? Come on, work with me, finance folks. My wife and my family, they ought to... that's HR. No. That's the one got the money, okay? They got the money. I'm going to hold you to it, okay? My wife and family got to get paid. What happened doing recently down in Georgia with the hurricanes? What happened? Something that was really remarkable. They authorized the soldiers to use their government credit cards to take care of business while their families relocated out. Anybody realize that? Third ID, they actually had the soldiers that had to leave Fort Stewart, so they gave them the credit cards and said, guess what? You use your government credit card, make the dadgum charge to take care of them. I need my money. I need to take care of my family. So we're doing that. But now let's get back to Korea now. I got to get my folks home. What do you think is happening from the States? My surrogate daughter is in Korea, so I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be trying to call to figure out how she's doing. Come on, work with me this one. What else is going on? Y'all got to do it now. You ain't going to get no break if y'all don't participate. Okay, what else is going on? Come on, work with me. Need transportation assets to get them out of Korea. How many flights are going out of Korea? Ferries, okay, we might be able to move some folks to Japan. That's a slow boat. I need to get my family taken care of. By way, also, let's be real about it. I may be dealing with a foreign national whose paperwork hasn't cleared yet. So what are we going to do? We'll leave them behind? What's the priority of effort? Come on, work with it this morning. Come on now, we got open discussion. What are we going to do, folks? This is the problem. In fact, I'm going to make it big. SSI could be, and I'm using this, it's not that I'm saying it would, it could be the folks that's actually helping to solve the problem back here.
AG school.
And if I'm doing that, I'm going to ask for what? Your expertise. So work with me this morning. That's the situation. How do I get them out of Korea?
Charter flights,
Charter flights.
designated flights,
Designated flights.
family members have no
Cruise ships.
Cruise ships. All right. Based on that, now I know you're not transportation, but my money folks over there, they got to make sure they pay. I got a contract for that, correct?
Yeah.
I may have to. What is my other option? Come on, work with me now. I may have to pay for it. Am I, with Cruise Line, am I going to do this out of the goodness of my heart?
No.
So what am I going to end up doing?
Charter.
Charter it, but you can federalize it, but do I really want to do that? Because that could be, that's an option. OCO? Can I use OCO dollars to do that?
You have to have, you can't just arbitrarily choose to give money for whatever you want. Someone Congress is gonna tell you, if you
Right.
need money, they're gonna give you the money that you need or where to get it from in order for you to do whatever you need to get your people
In
out
times
of
of emergency.
Okay, in times of mercy. How quick did we find them acting, Congress acting on this recent continuing resolution? I'm pointing out to you the real world, folks.
Well, just like they authorized the credit card, they'll do. I'm confident they'll do it. They're gonna
What
give us
about
the
the
money.
logistics?
We already know the number because our AG people are so proficient at what they do. They already know the exact number of dependents by gender, by age. We got those who have EFMP. We have all that already identified. We know we need 3 charter flights. We're gonna send 1 to California, 1 to Atlanta. We're gonna send them in 3. We already know all that because our
Yes,
systems
we
are
know
so
that.
precise in real world, in real time.
When IPSA comes.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right. Listen to what my counterpart over there just said. Talk to us.
You know, I'm just, we know where everybody needs to go because, we all AG. Finance, you got that. You know who needs to be paid and whatnot, but if this thing happens at 0 dark 30, the logistics of it all gets screwed up, How do we get them there? It's not, can we get them out? Yeah, we can get them out, but how do we get them to the airports or to the, to the docks, to get them out of there?
Buses.
Okay. Yes, sir.
There's no
I'm
traffic in
almost
Korea.
thinking, I'm digging into the instructor side, the pre-mortem. I'll say that. The pre-mortem. It's like the Titanic. You got to prepare for the worst. We got this situation over Korea, but do we have enough boats to get them out? Do we have enough planes to get them out?
Exactly.
That's the logistics part that he's talking about. Like, do we have enough helo? Do we have enough aircraft, boats, and everything to get everybody out within the time frame? Whether it be 72 hours, 96, or whatever. Can we get everybody out? I'm sure somebody smart has already thought about this, but do we have the, the assets in place
Yes,
to
we
make that
did
happen?
because we did our pre-mortem.
Right.
Okay.
Or do we have to fly in to go get it and then come back?
Okay.
We're gonna get planes from Japan, from Hawaii.
Correct.
Plus a sea.
With all our other assets around, we can use those. I'm sure somebody smart has already thought about it.
But
Okay.
if that happens at 0 dark 30, what kind
Same
of
thing.
time?
It's
What kind of time do we
yeah.
really have? Do we have 48 hours? or
96, 72 hours. It's a QRF at that point. Just like
Exactly.
the Pacific. Just like the Pacific. When I used to wear that tropic lightning patch, we had that 96-hour window where, hey, if this goes south, this is what we have to do.
Absolutely.
So we have to pack up, be ready to go. Plus, they already packed up. So they just have to get on, get in, and get out.
And those
So,
NEO
okay.
packets, they have all that information identified already.
All right. Neo Packet. Yes, sir.
You count on some of your allies too.
Okay. Count on some of y'all out. However, come I want to keep throwing the monkey wrench in. No. I'm not going to let you fly in. I'm gonna drop an aircraft. You're fair game. If you go back here, as some of you may think, and this kind of relates to it, we had the baby lift that was coming out of Vietnam, 1975. One of the aircraft crashed. Now, it wasn't a terrorist action or anything else. But if I'm looking at it, I want to make sure you got as much pain as possible. And some of us say, and this is not classified, this is just a perception or an observation, that if I'm going down, the leader of North Korea said, if I'm going down, everybody else is going down too. I ain't got nothing to lose. So I drop an aircraft with civilians on it. I can tell you, coming out of Germany, one of the things, if you go back and read the book Team Yankee, one of the things that happened is the fact that the Russians would actually hit Frankfurt in the middle of the NEO. Nobody's going to let it go automatically just as smooth as we see it. Somebody's NEO packets go get left.
Sorry, there'll be collateral damage.
Sorry, there'll be collateral damage. But what does that say? Now, I'm going to use her statement. I got this smartphone on. Guess what happens? I'm sitting there recording, and I'm just doing this for exercise purposes, on practical exercise. Okay? I record what she says. What happens when I push the send button on Facebook?
YouTube. Everybody.
Thank you. Now you see exactly why the information variable becomes even more critical. You got to watch what you say and where you say it and who you say it to. At the same time, I could go into a hospital and see somebody taking care of one person that is American and the other person looks Oriental or South Korean, and I'm just going to take a picture of it. What is the probable headline that comes out?
American hospital takes in South Korean refugees or adversaries or whatever.
That's one, but if I'm doing it on the medical side and I'm doing triage, and that person isn't getting taken care of because really,
The opposite.
Asians are being ignored by the.
there you go. So you can see the various stories that's coming out, the narrative. For those that's working public affairs, what does that really mean to them? They have to carry the message. You have to counter the narrative. Meanwhile, you're working down underneath doing all the personnel paperwork and you get increased pressure from somebody else. This is what happens real world. This is the world we deal with. That's why the information variable is so critical. And you see they talk about the information environment, which includes cyberspace, electronic magnetic spectrum, and other factors. Part of the thing I'm doing with the drill is to get you to thinking. That was the objective, part of that practical exercise, to get you to thinking. Why? Because you're trying to make a connection. The other one is the power of learning. In the Army learning model, is transferred from the stage or the instructor facilitator to the student. Walk away with that understanding. That's what you're doing in the 21st century. Is you are transferring the ownership of learning from the instructor to the student. I have an old saying that I picked up that I can't attribute to who it was, but it says, to teach is to learn twice. If you're going to be an effective instructor facilitator, you have to learn twice. You have to gather the information. If you would look at how my presentations went yesterday to yesterday afternoon to this morning, even though the material sits the same, I put it on different. Because I tailor it to the audience. I tailor it to the audience at hand. Everywhere you go, you have the power of Army learning to either ratchet up or ratchet down. One of the things that I learned on a quality assurance visit to Fort Bliss when the Air Defense School was there was their instructors, especially within the NCO Academy, not the Sergeant Major Academy, the Air Defense School Academy, NCO Academy. their instructors did a periodic brown bag lunch. And they would sit down and they would discuss OE in the sense of delivery. They would talk about their classes. They would say, here's what worked good with this class. Some of the guys said, well, you notice who was the high-speed, low-drag person in your class? What did you do to challenge them? That's what we mean by ratcheting up. If you notice, I said, I'm going to change the game rule because you got comfortable. I'm going to keep adding a problem to it until it makes what? The rigor gets harder and harder to either one of two things going to happen. You're going to break stride and say, I'm going to solve this problem, or you're going to give up. When you give up as an instructor facilitator, what do? Have to recapture the moment to make sure that they continue learning. That's good. As we used to say, all the infantry schools say, who's the spring butt in the class? Always knows everything. Okay? Okay, some of you already know you probably have some spring butts, the one that know everything, and they can't answer. Now, I'm going to give you a case in point of a way. Now, notice I said a way that I handle a situation. On a quality assurance visit, I turned around, and at that time I was at the transportation school, and in the process, we were doing what we call the focus groups. And we had a focus group with a bunch of students. As we were going through with the students, you always have that one student or group of folks that when somebody shows up, they got to spill their guts. Ooh. All right, they're the ones that got to tell what's going on. This is the real situation. And so all of a sudden, this young student gets up and says, sir, what they're doing, they're teaching us a bunch of Cold War tactics and everything is out of date. This is what they're not doing. We ain't doing this stuff downrange. Well, guess what happens? Come on. You've seen it before. You get the folks to be, I'm going to slide over and I'm going to do it. Yeah, he's got his amen corner going. I had an individual that was doing a right seat ride with me. And JT's like, oh boy, how's he going to get out of there? Well, they kept talking. I said, well, give me some more specifics of what's going on. And started teaching us this wishbone tactic and herringbone tactic. And we don't use that no more. Oh, okay. And he kept going on and on and on and on. And then I used a technique that I learned from a good friend of mine that was a former classmate and a chaplain. He says, always wait till they go and then interject. When he turned around and he did, I said, okay, Sergeant, now tell me, why was the herringbone formation picked out? What drove that? Uh-oh. Because brain was not engaged, mouth was engaged. All of a sudden, you can see just like anything else, oil and water separation. Individuals started going back away from it because, I don't want to be tied to that. You've seen that. But as a responsibility, as an evaluator and instructor facilitator, I have a responsibility to do what? To intervene, to teach, as well as provide information and let the individual down gently. So I started explaining to him, I said, the reason why you had a herringbone formation is for multiple reasons. One, it was developed as a response or reaction to air attacks. Another one is a herringbone is where you take the vehicles and you go out to the side. Tankers use it, and even use it in convoy movement because it provides 360-degree security. You have your flank security. If you have a ring mount on top of your truck or whatever, you point it out. It also makes it easier, especially at night, to come back together on periods of low visibility. You can pull back in formation and roll. I said, Sergeant, I said, the reason that you probably didn't do it is because you had to get out of the IED zone. You're in the kill zone. JT looked at me and said, dang, I just learned something today. I said, I learned something every day. So what? It means that the instructor facilitator learns every moment of every day. And so when you see with the Army Learning Model, I'm going to flip the slides back to what we were covered on the break, on doing a discussion on one of the countries here. So what you end up doing is you start learning to what we start doing is we start having an understanding of what drives this new generation. I'm going to test you something, no matter what we think. I got a 33-year-old son. I notice a lot of other kids in my community. Now, you may not believe it, but I ask you to chew on this a little bit. They're doing the same things we were doing at their age, it's just they have a different tool to do it. They have a smartphone. We had TV. We would look at TV a little bit more. Now, of course, we did have things that kind of entertained us a little more, like we went out and played in the street, and of course, that's how I learned to be very quick a little bit, because when it got dark, you had to beat the light.
Yep.
Okay? You had to beat the light home. You learn to listen. So a lot of it now, we find that I heard as an anecdotal comment that the average person spends about 14 minutes on their smartphone checking social media. So their attention span is short because of that tool. That's why in some particular classes, in some places, they'll tell you, take them darn things and leave them outside. But it's an enhancement. I can look up and I don't need you looking at it. I need your full undivided attention here. That's why they do it. Now, at the same time, I can tell you, as a historical context, the Army Learning Model, when it came about in 2009, part of it was driven by General Casey, who was the Chief of Staff of the Army in 2008, who was basically saying, this thing in Afghanistan and Iraq is going to slow down and possibly come to an end, and we need to rebalance the force, we need to refocus the force. We need to retain the skill set we have, don't throw the baby out the bathwater, but also be prepared to do what? To recapture the mission that we lost. We haven't done major combat operations. In fact, OIF-1 was the last, what we would say, major combat operation when we went in and we started knocking down the door to take everything down to Baghdad. So they wanted to do that. General Dempsey comes along when he was a trade-off commander in 2009, and after listening to and reading the book, and I don't know if you ever knew it, but General Dempsey, those that knew of him, he had a doctorate in education, English. And so what would happen is, he was listening to Dr. Tony Wagner, which wrote the book, The Global Achievement Gap, which is talking about how we educate our society within America. What are the problems we see? And for the 21st century, how we will have to approach learning, period. So much so, last week at Fort Leavenworth, the Army University is there. If you haven't gone on the Army University's page and looked at it and got familiar, you need to. A lot of great discussion, a lot of things that still is what I call the storm and dormant phase. Because a lot of things are changing, how we look at situations. And one of the concepts that came up, are we taught or do we learn? If you look at what we were doing in the 20th century, I was raised in that era. It was industrialized education. Now we're doing it in what I call, Walt Williams called, a service-oriented, information services type of education. Things in the old days was linear in nature and learning. Now it's non-linear. That's why I've showed you to set the context for Army. What drove Army learning and changes was operational environment. Folks started waking up and seeing what really changes how we do business. There were thoughts on the board to where we would have a school without brick and mortar. That was a discussion. That meant that we did not show up at the resident course for period. That was an idea. Even to the point we looked at the Captain's Career Course being in its redesign efforts, where you would have a non-resident phase, which would have the resident Common Core, would be taught at the installation where that person was assigned. They would go to their respective branch school for technical training. That was their thought. One of the guiding principles was the TTHS account was too friggin' big. And you have folks that sit on the line and supposed to go to courses and things, and they can't get there. They can't get there on the time. We even discussed just-in-time training. That was a concept that went across trade-off. And it wasn't all for the captain's career course. It was spread down to NCOES and everything else. Because folks were saying, I need this person to be what? Ready to do the mission and keep educating. Now you notice on this chart, and I had it, I struggle all the time when you see dot mil PF, and now I saw dot mil PFP. Okay, I could not get the P. I have a hard time memorizing a lot of things. I have a hard time. That's why I told them, I said, I hate you guys that when you talk about it, I got to change my password every 60 days and everything else. Drives me nuts. But you'll see exactly what happens is the changes to the operational environment starts doing what? Changing everything in here, in this column. It changes how we do doctrine. That's what happened with 3.0. The whole thing with the multi-domain fight, that's been going on since 2012. It just took up until 2016 that John London said, no, it's time to make the change. You got to crystallize it. It's driving changes across the board. For us, mostly within the military, we know that doctrine, it normally takes 5 to 10 years after its inception to make its way through the force. Going a little bit faster. Or it may change the way we're organized. If we look a few years ago with the modular army, I was in a session with the director of HRC, and she brought up to us in 2012 that we still had a shortage of majors. I'm sitting there along with a couple of others going, how the heck do we have a shortage of majors? We got 2 classes of ILE going on per year. Then she broke the news. Anybody want to guess what was happening while there was a shortage of majors?
All captains.
We didn't know.
That was part of it, but what was the real reason? Well, it's a backlog, but what was the real reason? Come on now, help me. All right now, AG, now you guys, this is one that's right in your face.
They're all deployed.
All we're all deployed. What was really the driving factor? What was the organizational structure and change?
There wasn't enough positions.
Modular.
That's it. We went modular. When we went modular, we increased the number of authorization for majors, but we did not increase the accessions to catch up to hit that peak. In 2012, the answer was, she says, if we stay the same course, we would not get well to 2022. 10 years for it to catch up, based on a change to an organizational structure, and then you compound it with the other things. You have folks that are getting out. Year group 2003, if I recall, 50% of them walked. 3 years later. Have somebody that understands that, right? 50% walk. So guess what now happens? Those authorizations for major, there's a shortfall. And as the director, she's talking about it. Here it is. 2-star. She says, now we're faced with a reality. Do we have lieutenant colonels go one down and fill that billet? Do we take captains and bring them up? Do we take even first lieutenants and move them up to fill the billet? These are challenges that I throw at you because of operational environment, and some people make some redesign. That is something you can throw in your classes and start folks thinking. What do you do? We noticed at the same time that we had a lot of S1s who were getting relieved. We know it. They were getting relieved. One of my good fraternity brothers, he turned around and said, I can tell you why they're getting relieved. He said, we come back for reset, and you got 90 days to reset, but that commander wants all the bodies yesterday. They can't get them. They figure that they're not holding, that the S1 is not doing what? His job, so they fire him. Yes, ma'am.
And not just that, there were some internal things going on inside of the AG Corps that facilitated that demise as well. When they as part of the organizational change, we got away from PSBs and all of these S1s were at VCTs and our personnel weren't trained. So they were deficient in a lot of the skills. As a result, that's why we have the HR plans and ops and brigade S1 course to give them that skill set to help them become successful.
And the Marshall Army was built for what? As a response, as some folk thought, and the Secretary of Defense thought, this will be able to fight the 21st century battle. We did away with this thing called the Division Artillery, the Division Support Command, DISCOM. You don't need it anymore. We can plug and play. Sounds good, briefs well, but wasn't dadgum practical. Guess what we just went back to? The DeVardy headquarters came back. Now you find that the MI battalion is back. We're getting away from the BFSB. Why? Because about 2 or 3 years ago, everybody says, ain't gonna work. So guess what that does to the personnel system? Total friggin' chaos. So imagine what your counterparts are doing in the Beltway right now. Some of them Harris about my size. Why? Because they have to respond. Why? Because this is meeting the demands. So a way that you can look at looking at OE integration in your courses of instruction is by forcing those type or suggesting those type problems and having folks solve them at the appropriate level. Notice what I said, at the appropriate level. I'm not telling you to give a strategic problem to some young sergeant or something along that way. You frame the conditions and then you drive it home and let them solve it. What does it want to mean in the middle of the night when I got to do an award? Anybody have experience when you're trying to do an award and everything in the middle of the night? You're already tired, you're hungry. All of a sudden, the award comes in. Does it come in grammatical spell? With the right spelling? So what is the commander saying? What is the commander in the first sergeant and sergeant major saying? Handle it. Anybody, come on now, work with me. This is non-attribution. Say again. Had to write a ton of awards. What happens on OERs and EERs? What happens on NCOERs?
It's not gonna be laid on my watch, so I'm gonna make sure it's good.
Make sure it's good. In fact, I had a counterpart that graduated from Clemson about 2 years later, well, about 4 years later. I ran into him in Germany, and come to find out, he says, you know what, the battalion commander isn't writing the whole stuff. And I said, what is it? We picked up the OERs, and we were reading, we said, that sounds just like you. Let's speak the reality, folks. This is stuff that happens. What happens normally in peacetime, it was one thing to always get. We need, this is the date, we need to close out on these efficiency reports because there's a promotion board coming up and we make sure we want to close it out. So this is the time that you need to submit stuff. I as a commander sitting there going, okay. I didn't talk very well to keep a notebook with bullets. So when it came time to write somebody's efficiency report, I didn't have to stumble. It was coded in my drawer so nobody knew who it was. But that was a way that I used the technique to do it. Now you're in wartime, you got to do that, and now you're writing stuff, and how many of you can probably think back that you had somebody they were writing, and now this person's career is impacted based on the words that were said. Someone is supposed to get paid right, but all the paperwork ain't there. What do I do?